It is my absolute honor to deliver the commencement address at this really auspicious and special occasion. So thank you. Please be seated. I'm going to begin with challenging you with a question. And this question is one that will only start tonight as a thought, and over the rest of your life, it will evolve and grow. So it's just the catalyst. But if you remember nothing else from what I say tonight and this weekend, I ask you to remember this question, and for the rest of your life, I challenge you to live into what this question means in your life. This question is, what does love look like? To help you with this process, I'm going to give you a few pointers that you can start considering on this journey as you reach out into whatever it is that the vision of your life has for you and what you're starting to see. I'm going to present this to you through the eyes of Scripture and science. As you know, I can't resist bringing the science in. The first point, the first concept, the first principle in trying to understand what love looks like in your life, because that's what you're going to deliver to the world. The first thing is to understand the power of being you. You are uniquely, fearfully, and wonderfully made. To the eyes of the poet Ralph Waldo Emerson, insist on yourself, never imitate. The second concept is the power of self-regulation. Through the eyes of Scripture, bring all thoughts into captivity to Christ Jesus. Make sure every thought aligns with what love looks like, because every thought is a real thing that produces fruit. Is that fruit what love looks like? Through the eyes of science, in the great drama of existence, we ourselves are both actors and spectators. Niels Bohr. Life is a huge, big, scary, exciting, wonderful drama. You play a role, and you're also a spectator. You're designed to stand back and observe your thinking, feeling, and choosing in every moment. You are designed to bring all thoughts into captivity. The third one, and here I'm really going to challenge you intellectually, the power of choice. I lay before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. Your choices have eternal significance. Through the eyes of science, the free choices made by the human players can be seen as miniature versions of the choices that appear to be needed at the creation of the universe. Quantum theory opens the doors to, and indeed demands, the making of these latter free choices. The situation is concordant with the idea of a powerful God that creates the universe and its laws to get things started, but then bequeaths part of this power to beings created in His own image, at least with regard to their power to make physically effective decisions on the basis of reasons and evaluations. This is a quote by Professor Henry Stapp, a Berkeley quantum physicist, one of the most brilliant minds on the planet currently, who indicates that we are beings who have this power of choice, and that the fundamental principles of quantum physics, which underscore all science, require a human being and the human being's ability to choose and the impact of their choices in order for the world to go round. This brilliant scientist acknowledges that that power that is invested in you and me comes from God. The fourth principle, the power of perception, which aligns with the concept of vision, the whole idea of this conference. So these other things lead up to the power of perception. Philippians 4:8, think on these things. The perceptions and the way that you should look at life are through the eyes of love and truth and peace and patience and kindness and all the fantastic things that we know to be true in the Word of God. The fruits of the Spirit, Philippians 4:8, and all the others. Through the eyes of science, the task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. Quantum physicist Erwin Schrödinger. So, 4 basic principles. Number 1, the power of you activates your brilliance when you get to grips with understanding how God has made you able to do something that no one else can do. There is no competition because no one can compete with type U. As you step into life and as you discover what love looks like, you will activate the brilliance of you. But if you try to imitate someone else and you try to be someone else, it won't work. It'll just cause brain damage and heartache. The second thing, I'm just summarizing, self-regulation through the sciences, neuroscience, psychoneuroimmunology, quantum physics, all this great stuff. We learn that we are able to self-regulate every 10 seconds. So I love that we have a command in Scripture, bring all thoughts into captivity, and we have the design to do it. So now you have absolutely no excuse, graduates. You have to bring all your thoughts into captivity every 10 seconds, because that is how you are going to train yourself to really discern what love looks like. That is how you connect with the Spirit of God, like Adonica was saying a few moments ago, by deliberately and intentionally focusing your mind on the wisdom which comes through the Spirit of God. You're not your brain, graduates. You control your brain. As you saw some of these slides over the weekend, through your unique brilliance, your ability to self-regulate, and through the powers of your perception, you are able to change structure. You are always in a Genesis moment. You create your next reality. So when I ask you what love looks like, what realities are you going to create now and forevermore? You control that motion of quantum energy and so on going through your brain. You control the response of your brain. You control your body. You express what love looks like, graduates, through your brain and your body. Steward these so carefully. How can you start setting yourself in the right direction? How can you set your mind on what love looks like? Let's look at the concept of a mindset. How should you set your mind? What is a mindset? A mindset is how you're going to be thinking. It's the power of perspective. You are going to look at life through the eyes of perspective. It's the frame around the painting. It's the sunglasses. It is the view that you uniquely have. No one sees anything like you do. As I said, there is no competition. You don't need to compete. We enhance each other. As you celebrate each other, instead of competing with each other, you enhance your brain function and your intelligence. You access the wisdom of God, and you release the power of the Holy Spirit in you. But a surefire way to block all of that is to start envying and be jealous of other people's path. It will cause brain damage. It will block your ability to hear and connect with the Spirit of God. You are going to see the healthy and the toxic through your perspective. And this is why you need to self-regulate, so that you can control your perspective and make sure that the thoughts your perspective are producing, because you create matter out of mind, are in alignment with love, Godness, loveness. God is love. God is absolute love. That is our standard. Don't be offended by this next image. This is Prince William, and he was photographed. And if you have a look, it looks like he's throwing a finger in the first picture. Can you see there? Where is it? Okay. But if you look at the bottom picture, he's holding up 3 fingers. This is exactly the same photograph taken at exactly the same time from 2 different perspectives. Either you are going to look at life through 1 finger. I will not demonstrate it, just for the sake of etiquette. Or you can look at life through 3 fingers. Every choice you make is going to be one of those perspectives. How do you do this? Once again, it goes back to the 4 principles. Step into your you-ness. Recognize your ability to self-regulate. Recognize the power and the responsibility of choice. Because it all pours out through your perspective, and you create reality, and that reality produces your words and your actions, and that changes the world, which is what Henry Stapp, that quantum physicist, was saying in that very long, complicated quote. You have been invested with the power of choice, the very power of choice that created the universe. You have been honored with that creative genesis ability in your genes. Right now, you are growing new genes to make new proteins to hold this information. Your brilliance is astounding. What is a mindset? A mindset is an attitude, a perspective. On a physical side, it is a cluster of thoughts that look like trees in your brain. And it has information of the memory, and it has emotions. And it generates a perception. The 1 finger mindset generates a toxic perception. The 3 finger generates a healthy perception. You choose, you're in control. Why is it so important to know about mindsets? Well, when you understand how your mind works, which is what I've labored to help you understand this weekend, you can direct it, graduates, where you want it to go. What structures you want to build in your brain is under your control. And ultimately, you choose how you want your life to go. God doesn't jump here, you jump in to love. You choose to wrestle with God like Jacob did. You choose to access the ingredients of wisdom. It doesn't come jumping onto you. The evidence is all around. You choose to step in with your correct mindsets. Over the years, the past 30 years, I have researched, as you know, the mind-brain connection. And I've identified in as broad categories, different mindsets. There are about 15 different mindsets. I'm going to just talk about a couple of them. The thinker mindset. Now, how should you use a mindset? Here's the easy way. When you get up in the morning, you get dressed. So think of putting on your mindset as you get dressed, because this is the way that your mind needs to be set to make sure that love is looking like love in your life in that day. That love doesn't look like the 1 finger, that it looks like the 3 fingers. So you put these on. And first and foremost, the first piece of clothing in terms of a mindset is that you need to recognize that you're a deep thinking, intellectual being. That God is brilliant and you are made in the brilliance of God's image, and God is a deep thinking, deeply intellectual being. Never get caught into the thinking that, oh, I mustn't be overthinking, or I mustn't think because it's not spiritual. That is a complete insult to God. God's not dumb. God's intelligent, and so are you. Thinking is very spiritual. If you are thinking in alignment with God, you're thinking in the right direction. If you're not self-regulating and watching your choices and your perceptions, and you get in the 1 finger zone, then you are not operating in wisdom, and your mindset is now going awry. Okay? So you put on the thinker mindset. And the thinker mindset means that you're going to approach everything in life in a very self-regulated, deliberate, and conscious way. Am I operating in love? Should I be thinking this thought? What does this mean? Standing back and observing your own thinking. You have a part of your brain, the frontal lobe, that responds to this ability to self-regulate. And the action of self-regulation is called the multiple perspective advantage, or the MPA. And it means that you can stand back and observe your own thinking, feeling, and choosing. And you're supposed to do that every 10 seconds. And that is how you renew your mind. That is how you bring all thoughts into captivity. That is how you do what it tells you to do in Philippians 4:8 and all the rest of that stuff. Okay? So when you adopt a thinker mindset, it is a determination when you wake up in the morning that today I am going to think deeply. And involved in that thinking deeply is the recognition that your brain will get tired and your body will get tired because your enormously quantum, infinite spirit, which is 99% of who you are, is going to move through this physical brain and make it tired. So you need to, in order to stay connected to the Spirit of God, deliberately and intentionally take time during the day to rest your brain. How do you do that? Take at least 15 minutes in the day. At least a 15-minute session where you switch off to the external and you switch on to the internal networks of your mind. Where you give your physical brain a rest, where you allow thoughts to move through your mind, where you meditate. It's basically meditating. And that will give you insight into the blocks, the intrusive thoughts, the things that are swirling around. It's incredibly insightful. It is incredibly healthy for you to understand what is going on inside of you. Okay? When you go into these thinker moments, you're basically relatively free from external influences. You want to switch off to the external and switch on to the internal. It is activated through daydreaming, through mind wandering, and it develops creative thinking. Mind wandering and has a terrible press. It's an incredibly powerful creative strategy for connecting to the Spirit of God and for finding out what is going on in your head. Many studies have been done showing the power of thinking and thinking deeply. They did one interesting study where they took people from the ages of 18 through 77. They put them in a room and they said to them, think. No phones, no computers, no nothing except you and your mind. Think. And they did it for 16 minutes and they hated it. The majority of people hated it. They were totally traumatized by being told to think or meditate for 15 minutes. A few short years ago, this was not even an issue. So our generation has changed. We are forgetting how to think. And if you don't think, your brain won't rest. And if you don't think and rest your brain, you're not going to connect with the Spirit of God. You're going to miss it. And you're not going to know what love looks like. And you're going to hear all kinds of voices in your head, and you're not going to know how to discern them. And you know how hot Pastor Rod is about you discerning this voice of the Spirit of God. That's the whole basis of how he runs his ministry, if I've understood it correctly. So, when you daydream, you're doing this. You are increasing your intelligence when you do the switching off. When you think deeply. You can find thoughts that are keeping you blocked and start working on them. 94% of people across the world battle with intrusive thoughts. So you're not alone if you have a bunch of chaotic nut job thoughts going through your brain. That's okay, we're all crazy. Now you have a chance to find the crazy and sort it out and self-regulate. The possibility mindset. So now you put the possibility mindset on. And the possibility mindset sees multiple possibilities in every situation. We're so goal-oriented in our current technological quick fix day and age. There's my goal and this is my path. But if I don't get there with this kind of plan that I've put in place for myself, then you think, oh no, now what do I do? People are so focused on the end goal that my advice to you as graduates is don't set goals. Have a vision and be open to all the possibilities along the way. You will not be blindsided when the little perfect plan that you have set out doesn't quite pan out the way you expected. When you're in the zone, applying the first 4 principles of self-regulation, stepping into the you, getting your perspective right, choosing, staying in the zone, you will then see multiple possibilities as ways of learning new information. It's an entrepreneurial kind of mindset that goes along with possibilities. It is hopeful because you just keep going till you find success. You appreciate the journey. You've heard this before. You appreciate the journey, not just the destination. We're in a day and an age where the destination is the main focus, where people try and pursue it like an extrinsic goal. Get happiness, extrinsic goal. Get next thing, extrinsic goal. But it doesn't come from outside, and if you try and find it outside and put it inside, you're going to be unhappy and frustrated your whole life. It's from inside. You are intrinsically driven, and the success that you have is unique to you. There is no formula for success. It doesn't look like X, Y, or Z. It looks like you. And it's from inside out. Don't measure yourself, like I said in the beginning. Don't imitate someone else. Don't cause you brain damage. It's from inside out. Do not be extrinsically driven. Be intrinsically driven. Really meditate on that. Sean Aker from Harvard, Professor Sean Aker, he talks about the research called the optimism bias, which has been around for years, which talks about basically how we are wired for love, which basically says God is love and we're made in God's image. And he talks about the optimism bias of our brain. So we have a wired for love bias in our brain and our body. Don't you love that? So when I say, what does love look like? You're already biased in that direction. So you're just releasing intrinsically what's already in you. But you have to keep a handle on your mind to make sure you stay in that path. So basically, he says, the optimism bias of our mind and brain enables us to pursue more than one possibility. Ladies and gentlemen, you can pursue multiple possibilities. You choose the ingredients, you bake the cake. Organic, sustainable, local, farm to table, like I said yesterday. Okay? Not junk. Don't bake junk food. That's in that zone. This zone. You choose. You work. There isn't just one way. There are infinite possibilities in God's zone. This is the Hebrews 11:1, faith and substance that already exists. Thomas Edison, he tried more than 1,000 times before he discovered the light bulb. And when he was interviewed once, someone said to him, Thomas, how do you feel about your failures? And he looked at them and said, scratched his head and said, I don't see them as failures. I now know 1,000 things that don't work. What a powerful statement. That is what love looks like. You just never give up. You never get into guilt, shame, and condemnation because failures are learning opportunities. And I know you've heard this before, but you need to get this intrinsically from inside. You need to get this right inside. It needs to ooze out of every cell. You have cellular memory. Your mind plants memories in your brain and your cells. Get it there. But that takes a thinker mindset. That takes you really thinking deeply. The expectancy mindset. Expectations change the structure of your brain. As you expect to go out into the world and do all these great things that you're going to do, so as you build that vision, guess what? You're busy building thoughts into your brain. You are creating physical substance from which you will act. So yes, dream. As Martin Luther King said, dream. We need a dream because as you dream and think and have that's expectations, you're wiring this into your brain and keeping the possibility mindset added onto that. It means that you're going to build this network, and without that network, you can't do anything because the way that you are designed as a human is that God's given you a mind and a brain, and with your mind you build. And with your brain, you store in your brain, and then your brain and your body, driven by your mind, do the talking and the actions. So if it's not in your mind first, it won't get into your brain and your body, and you won't do it. But you've got to follow through, so it takes time. So it's going to take that time to build these visions and have the possibility mindset, because what you might eventually, the dream or whatever, is going to change a gabillion times. Embrace that. You see, expectancy increases the chance that what you hope will happen, happens. That statement in itself is profound. Expectancy increases the chance that what you hope will happen. It creates a heightened awareness. When you're in a state of heightened awareness, your brain and body release neurotransmitters. Your body goes into 1,400 neurophysiological responses start working for you, not against you. Your intelligence increases so high that you like this mind. You're just genius. It's in you. I'm excited because I've seen this for 30 years. I've researched for 30 years. I come from a school of education in the brain that told me that the brain can't change. I was told 30 years ago by my professors, why are you asking these questions? I did a TED Talk. You can Google my TED Talk where I asked. 30 years ago, I asked a ridiculous question. But I had the thinker mindset on. I had the possibilities mindset on. I had the expectation mindset on. And my question was, can the mind change the brain? And I was told, crazy, the brain doesn't change, because in the 80s we were told the brain could not change. That's it. But I knew differently because of what I knew from my spiritual journey. I knew instinctively as a human we all change, so it's so logical anyway. You don't need to be a PhD to understand that your mind changes your brain. Okay? and I researched that, and I worked with a group of people. My initial research was working with people with traumatic brain injury. I found a group or a population group that there was very little research on, and that they had pretty much written off because they said you can't help someone with brain damage. And I said, okay, bring it on. Give me the worst situation, and let me show you that with deliberate and intentional mind, getting your mind renewed and under control and self-regulating and all the stuff that I teach, you will change your brain structure, which will then cause a change in your social, emotional, cognitive, etc. functioning. There's all kinds of studies. There's a really cool study where they took hotel attendants and they told them that when you do this exercise and when you're cleaning the hotel, you're going to lose all this weight because it's brilliant exercise. The other group, which was the control group, they said, oh, it's not even exercise. You're never going to lose weight. Well, the ones who had the expectation of losing weight did lose weight. And the ones that didn't, they were told you can't, they didn't. There's so many research experiments like this. It's called the expectancy effect. It's an actual thing. I'm studying it now in the research that I'm doing. There's an expectancy effect. What you expect will happen. It becomes a reality because you have Genesis power inside of you. You need to use that very responsibly. That is why every 10 seconds you better be in connection with the Spirit of God and operating in love, because out of your mouth is the abundance of what you stuck in your head. As a man is sticking stuff in his head, that's what he speaks and does, out of the abundance of the heart. So there's the scriptures linking you there. What you think about, you will produce. And if you make a mess, as I've been saying all weekend, embrace. Because embracing the mess and the wrong choices, do not let yourself get guilty and condemned. Celebrate. Another one bites the dust. Remember that song? Okay. Because when you celebrate, you have weakened. So there's another toxic issue in your life or a trauma you haven't dealt with that can bite the dust. This is the kind of thing that you put on in the morning. So when I get up in the morning, I put on my thinker mindset. I put on my expectation mindset. I put on my possibilities mindset. And I'll throw out one more. And then don't have time to discuss all 15. It's in my materials, okay? So this is forgiveness. We all know why we should forgive. Let me tell you the scientific reason why you need to get up in the morning and say, I am determined to put on my forgiveness mindset today. Because today someone, I can guarantee, will irritate you, hurt you, or do something to you that you're going to have to forgive. It may be little, it may be big, but someone is going to irk you in some way or hurt you in some way. Okay? If not today, by tomorrow, and definitely sometime this week. So go in with your forgiveness mindset, because when you don't forgive, you stay connected to the source of energy, toxic energy, that you had to forgive in the first place. So for example, I'll give you an extreme example. If you were raped and abused and you never forgive, it doesn't mean that if you forgive that you're excusing the behavior. God's got your back. Okay? But when you don't forgive and you keep the trauma, you're causing brain damage, neurochemical chaos, all kinds of stuff that I've been teaching all weekend. But not only that, is you stay connected. Quantum physics shows us that while we are not in a state of forgiveness, we are physically, as though there's a physical quantum energy connection. It's called entanglement. You are entangled in the source of pain. And those people think about you, they may be 10,000 miles away. If they are thinking about you, that is energizing the toxicity in your own brain, and whatever you think about the most, whatever gets energy grows. So when you forgive, you disconnect that power source. You are no longer connected in the quantum world, which is pretty much the spiritual world. It's an attempt to explain the spiritual world. Don't tell me you never can explain the spiritual world, but quantum physics starts giving us glimpses. And it shows that when two particles are in relationship with each other, it doesn't matter how far apart, one will move, the other one will move. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. It's real. You are connected. All of us in this room are connected. We are all part of the body, and we connected to God. You impact each other. When you have a very distinct relationship with someone, like in a good relationship, that's great. You don't need to break those connections. But in a toxic situation, you need to break those connections. Listen to this, please. Toxicity can be broken by forgiveness. Love can never be broken because it's truth. And that is why we need to focus on what love looks like. So what should graduate leaders be doing? I see you as graduate leaders. You are, each and every one of you, a brilliant leader. And I'm not just saying that to motivate you. I'm really not a motivational speaker, nor am I a preacher. I'm a scientist. And a scientist who has understood the mind-brain connection. I've seen it in my own life, the lives of my 4 children, and the millions that we now reach across the globe. You are a leader, and you are outstanding. And it is really time for you to step into your leadership role. And a leader is someone who really demonstrates love. Not someone who demonstrates power. Not someone who's opportunistic. Not someone who's just running after money. And if you get money, that's great. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying a graduate leader is not extrinsically driven. A graduate leader leads from love. You need to become educated so that you can educate. You've had a great theology education. You've also had a great education in life thus far because you're not 0. You are whatever age you are. You're going to get more education. Every day is going to be a learning day. So keep all those mindsets on. Thinking, expectation, possibility, forgiveness, and all the other great mindsets. Learn about them. Put them on. Because you are needing to constantly develop your brain. If you don't develop your brain and grow your brain, toxic waste forms in your brain that will also block your ability to connect with the Spirit of God and will affect your emotions. You are a learning being. You think, feel, choose all day long. And at night, you sort out what you're thinking, feeling, and choosing. When you think, feel, and choose, you learn. You need to constantly be learning. And you need to be responding to life. You see, if you apply the principles I spoke about in the beginning, if you recognize the power of the love that you are, if you recognize and understand the power of choice and self-regulation and perspective, you will start learning so quickly how to regulate yourself, and you will learn the right stuff. And you will learn from the wrong stuff, because like Thomas Edison said, there are no failures. There's just things now that you know that are better ways of doing things, or things that you should do better, things that you've learned from, new knowledge. Focus on your community. People are dying from isolation. You are designed for deep, meaningful connection. God created us for relationship, and He created each other for relationship. Ephesians 4:16, every part of the body does its own special work, I'm paraphrasing. And when the whole body is working together, physical body and the humanity, the human race, we will operate in love and power and soundness. At the moment the world is divided, it has been since the beginning of time. It's time to take that back. It's not going to happen unless we learn what love looks like. Who demonstrates that? If we claim to know Jesus and God and to reflect the glory of God and to be a bearer of God's image, then you better bear His image. And His image is love. What does love look like? Community initiatives. Do stuff in your community. Reach out to your community. Change things. One of my friends has a church in Bremerton, and in a very poor area, and they raised millions and built a huge, beautiful community center. Surrounded in the midst of it is a basketball court, and they have all kinds of community activities. People are pouring in there from the community neighborhood. They run church there on a Sunday. They have transformed their community. And in the front of the church, they have a little bench. And that little bench is a little wooden bench, and there's water flowing in that bench. And this is something, the concept that they put into place, something that I developed years ago and showed them how to do, and they did it. They put a bench, and this is called bench therapy. And this bench is where you go and sit and show love. So if someone is in a bad place, they sit on the bench. That is the bench of no judgment. That is a bench where I can simply express my love, experience love. When someone sits on the bench outside their church by the little fountain, everyone now knows in their community that they are sitting there either to listen to someone or to talk to someone. There's no judgment. There's no, I will pray for you as a magic potion thing you've heard me say this weekend. You are completely led by love, whatever that looks like in that moment. But it is a place where you can connect with your community. There's so many great community initiatives. But if you're not connecting in deep, meaningful ways with each other and with your community, you're not showing what love looks like. Learn to be aware of someone. A few years ago, Derek Summerfield, a South African psychiatrist, and getting all these South Africans fitted into this, that wasn't intentional, just worked out. Derek Summerfield's a great psychiatrist. He doesn't use medication. He believes in love as the real evidence base. He goes all over the world and works with traumatic populations, war-torn countries, and he was in Cambodia, and he was talking to a group of doctors and doing a lecture. And they said to him, Dr. Summerfield, please tell us about these things called antidepressants and so on. So they started explaining what they were and why they're bad and all this stuff. And they stopped him halfway and they said, we've got those. So he thought, okay, they're going to tell him about some herbs or herbal remedies or something. And they said, we have cows. So now he's thinking, okay, tell me the rest of the story like you are. So they proceeded to tell a story of one of their community who was a rice farmer. And in the rice farmer, as a rice farmer, you farm in paddies, and paddies are filled with water. And so he was standing in this water, and there were exploded. What do you call those things? Not a bomb, a landmine, thank you. A landmine exploded, and it blew off his legs. So he had to get wooden legs. And after a period of time, he was back in the rice paddies, and it was unbelievably painful. He could not handle his wooden leg attached to the knees with soaked in water, and it was becoming infected. It was becoming such a problem. So he couldn't do that anymore. He started getting so depressed. He just withdrew and lay in a ball and wouldn't eat. His friends noticed, now please learn what I'm going to tell you, noticed that something was wrong with this man. They were not so caught up in their own lives and the individualistic society that we live in the United States of America and the Western world. By the way, the United States of America is the most individualistic society in the world. Cambodia is one of those community societies. We've forgotten about community. We profess to know God, and God is part of the nation and all this stuff, but we are the most individualistic nation in the world. Our teenagers are the loneliest in the world. So we're not noticing when someone's in pain. These friends of this farmer noticed he was in pain. These friends of this farmer, number two, they went to him and they said, talk, bench therapy. Tell us, we're listening. They didn't give him a bunch of advice and tell him, get happy and do this and I'll pray for you. They said, tell us, talk to us. I want to listen to your story. Then they said, how can we help you? They didn't give him a bunch of instructions. They didn't tell him what to do. They said, how can we help you? And he said, I really want to farm again. I love farming. So they thought for a moment and discussed it amongst each other, and they said, you've guessed it, let's give him a cow. He can become a dairy farmer. He just wanted to get out in the fields and farm again. So that was his antidepressant. And how did that come? Community initiative, listening, connecting. Those three things. Notice, listen, and solve the problems together. Get a cow. Destigmatize anxiety and depression as a leader. If someone says they're depressed and anxious, don't think they're crazy and send them to the doctor for meds. Please listen to them, embrace them, get my materials or any information you need to help you understand that depression and anxiety are not illnesses. Don't let this evil model telling you that you've got a disease stop you from living out who you really are. Those drugs will anesthetize you. They damage the brain and they separate the spirit from the brain. Your brain can always heal, but you cannot do this alone. We get resilient in an attitude of love. So embrace when you feel depressed, because you're going to. When you feel anxious and have the panic attacks, when you feel the angst, when you feel the edginess, when you freaking out, make sure it's in the love zone. Embrace it. What did I say about embracing? With embracing brings awareness. It's the Gethsemane example I gave the other night. Get in the garden with your community, face the cross, get on the cross, get through it. But you are not a broken individual. You are not a broken brain. You are not broken, destroyed genes. You are a brilliant individual. Never forget that. But if you're going to embrace the medical model that says you have illnesses, I'm not talking about cancer and heart disease. Those are all real. They happen and we can deal with them. Okay, I'm talking about mind stuff. Okay, when people talk about a disease of bipolar, disease of schizophrenia, these are not diseases. I've been speaking about this all weekend. Get the knowledge. Get educated. People are going to ask you, I am so depressed. What can I do? My child has schizophrenia. I don't know what to do. She's having psychotic breaks. I don't know how to help her. Get a community. Get 5 people. Go sit with that family. All night, all day, get groups of you going. When you get tired, get another 5 in. Get them food. Get them, walk with them. Keep that person up and down walking. Watch TV. Let's sleep with them. Don't help the family. Do you see what I'm saying? Find the cow as a community. That is reaching out in love. That is what love looks like. Love does not look like, just send them off to the institution. They're crazy. When someone has suicidal ideations, and by the way, up to 95% of people globally have thought about suicide, it's because we feel so pressured. It seems like that's a way out. Listen to each other. Don't fear it. Talk, connect, community. Help to build your team's resilience. When I talk about a team, I'm talking about whoever you reach, your family, your workplace, the people that you minister to, I don't know, the team, people that listen to you. Build their resilience. Teach them these things that I'm telling you. Along this, remember, all the science is spiritual stuff. It's all God's knowledge. The Bible is the story, and this is how the story works. Use these techniques. This is lifestyle stuff that I'm giving you. Learn to apply mental self-care techniques because you are going to be challenged. I cannot tell you how many pastors Mac and I minister to and help who are burnt out. Do you know that physicians are so burnt out that one a day in this country commits suicide? Teachers are so burnt out. People are burnt out. Please don't get burnt out. Pastors are burning out because they think that they have to fix everyone. You can't fix anyone. All you can do is love people, and that is why I asked you the question, what does love look like? Love looks like you sitting on the bench and listening. Love looks like you saying, hey, this is how you can change your brain. Your brain is controlled by your mind. You're not your brain. Hey, how can I help you? That is how we help to facilitate change in people's lives. But it requires you looking after yourself. You know when you go on a plane and they say to you, give oxygen to yourself first before you help someone else? Because if you don't, you're going to die. You can't help that other person. That principle applies. You're looking after yourself while you are looking after other people. So these principles of mental self-care techniques you are going to need as leader graduates. And you are also going to help the people that these are mental self-care techniques that you need, and the people that you lead are also going to need. So as you are doing them, you help other people do them. Because they'll do what you do. Don't think, oh, I'm the pastor, I'm the whatever, and I don't. You need it. I need it. My reality to you, my authenticity will be coming to you and saying, I've experienced issues. I've had children that have gone through anorexia, suicidal thoughts. I've gone through it. I'm not immune. I have worked in the worst parts of Africa. I have seen trauma. I know what it means to experience pain. I've seen it. I've felt it. I've experienced it. I've been immersed in it. You need to use it because then you can help people use these techniques. You've got to self-regulate your thinking. You've got to learn to do mental autopsies. You've got to cut up those thoughts. You've got to find those toxic issues and deal with them. The category 1, which is the voluntary trash that we built into our life, and category 2 are the traumas that we haven't dealt with. Okay? You've got to do that. I've been talking all weekend about how to do that. You need to reconceptualize. Do not take what you've gone through and hide it or suppress it or numb it or deny it, because what you have been through is part of your story. If you've been bullied as a child at school, if you've been whatever you've been through, it is part of your story. Own it, embrace it, but reconceptualize it. Redesign it so that you get into the love zone, that you see it through different eyes. Relook at it through a process. It's going to take time. It's going to take at least 63 days to reconceptualize those thoughts. Therefore, renewing of the mind is not something you just do on Monday and never again. It is a lifestyle. You have to self-regulate all the time. Every 10 seconds, bring every thought into captivity, renewing the mind. This is what I'm telling you to do now. Reconceptualizing is a constant getting on your surfboard and redesigning those thoughts. Build your brain. If you want to get intelligent, if you want to connect with the Spirit of God, you have to grow your brain, think a mindset, and you need to detox your brain. I've spoken plenty about that. Okay, I'm almost done. If the brain gets worse by us constantly focusing on the problem, because whatever you think about the most grows, then the brain can get better by us focusing on the solution. You have the solution in love. You have to see what that looks like in each of your individual lives. And please remember, it's going to look completely different to someone else. When you do this, when you identify, and it's a process, you're not going to know it all, it's organic. But when you start working on this, what does love look like? You will help yourself and others go from trauma to freedom, from pain to peace, from indecision to action, from confusion to clarity, from envy to celebration, which enhances brain health when you celebrate others. From frustration to anticipation, from being overwhelmed to being set free, from fear to courage, from suppressing issues to having the courage to face them like Jesus did in the garden, from numbing thoughts to capturing them. It doesn't say numb all thoughts, it says bring all thoughts. From passivity to passion. You can do something. It takes one man to make a difference. From hopelessness to hope. In the words of a brilliant another African man, differences are not intended to separate, to alienate. We are different precisely in order to realize our need of one another. You're not alone. Do not go into this world as an individual. Go into this world with a community mindset. You need each other. In closing, you are not defined by where you are now, nor where you have been, but rather where you will be. Congratulations, 2019 graduates.